Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle into its weight. Allow your breathing to even out. There is no destination to reach tonight, no arrival to consider. The journey has already slowed. The path will carry itself. When you are ready, we begin. Tonight's story is called Where the Sky Lowers into Stillness. The ground beneath you is open and gently uneven, a wide stretch of high grass that bends without sound when you pass through it. The horizon runs long and unbroken in every direction, not sharp, not dramatic, simply present. The sky above has already begun its quiet descent into evening. It does not fall. It does not shift abruptly. It seems instead to widen, to settle lower in a way that is felt more than seen. You step forward without haste. The earth receives your weight and releases it again with a soft resilience. The grass brushes lightly against the fabric at your ankles. A faint warmth lingers from the day, but it has thinned. The air holds a cooler thread now, moving slowly across your skin, touching and then passing. The sky is pale at the center and deeper toward the edges. Not vibrant, not dim. It feels expansive in a way that makes measurement irrelevant. You could count distances here, but the counting would not change anything. The land extends quietly. The sky extends with it. There is no path marked across the plain, only the slight impression where others may have walked before, and even that has softened over time. You do not follow a line. You simply move forward, and the ground accommodates the direction. The air carries a subtle scent of dry grass and faint mineral dust. Nothing sharp, nothing distinct enough to name. It is the smell of open space of soil that has held heat and is now releasing it back into the wider atmosphere. A single cloud drifts across the far stretch of sky. It does not gather attention. It slides, slowly thinning as it moves, its edges dissolving into the surrounding light. The movement is so gradual it might be missed if you were looking for something quicker. But here, nothing quick is required. Your steps shorten slightly as the land rises in a shallow swell. The incline is gentle enough that it does not demand effort. It only alters the angle of your gaze. The horizon lowers by a fraction, and the sky takes up more space in your vision. The wind shifts once, brushing across your shoulder and then easing. It does not push. It simply moves through. There is an indentation in the grass not far from where you pause, a faint curve where someone once sat long enough to bend the blades in a particular direction. The grass there still remembers the weight, though it has mostly lifted again. The mark is subtle, easy to miss. You notice it, and then you allow it to remain as it is. The sky continues its quiet adjustment. Light narrows at the edges of things. The color shifts almost imperceptibly from pale gold to a softer silver gray. The change does not signal anything. It does not imply that something must happen next. It is simply the atmosphere settling into its later hour. You resume walking. The ground beneath you is firm but forgiving. Each step presses and releases. Without rhythm you need to match. Your breath continues in its own cadence. You do not attempt to align it with anything beyond what it already knows. Far in the distance, the faint outline of a low ridge rests against the lowering sky. It does not dominate the view. It is part of it. The land here is not dramatic. It is steady. The wind returns in a longer strand, slipping through the grass and creating a quiet ripple that travels outward from where you stand. It is not loud. It is more a suggestion of motion than sound. The ripple passes, and the grass settles again, blades leaning toward one another as though returning to a familiar posture. The sky lowers another fraction. Not visually, perhaps, but in presence. It feels closer, not confined, just nearer. The openness does not shrink, it gathers. You pause again at the crest of the shallow rise. The plain stretches behind you in muted color. Ahead, it continues without interruption. The horizon does not promise anything beyond itself. It is enough as it is. The temperature cools by a degree that is felt at the back of your neck. The air slides there and rests briefly before moving on. Your shoulders ease downward by a small measure. The fabric at your sleeves stirs and then falls still. A faint sound carries from somewhere beyond sight, perhaps a gate shifting once in the distance or metal brushing lightly against metal. It does not repeat. It simply marks that something exists beyond your view. Then it is gone. The light continues its narrowing. Edges soften, color thins. The sky becomes less layered and more unified, as though the distinctions between tones are smoothing into one another. You lower yourself to sit for a moment, allowing the ground to take your weight fully. The grass compresses beneath you and springs lightly at the sides. The soil beneath feels cool and stable. There is something quietly reassuring about land that has remained open like this for years, absorbing weather without complaint. You do not need to look up to know the sky is there. It presses gently at the edges of perception, vast and unhurried. The breeze slows, the air steadies. A small insect passes near your ear, its movement so brief it leaves only the faintest trace of sound. Then stillness returns, wide and even. The sky lowers further into silver. The pale tones deepen by a breath. There is no signal of ending, only a gradual settling, as though the day is folding itself inward. You rise again and begin walking without direction other than forward. The grass parts. The land remains level. The horizon continues unbroken. The sky continues, lowering in presence rather than height, and you remain within both, not separate from the openness, not seeking its edge, simply moving as the atmosphere moves around you. There is space here for thought to slow without instruction, space for breath to widen without effort. The plane does not ask anything of you. It does not reward or challenge, it simply exists. The sky lowers another fraction, and the stillness begins to gather. The stillness does not arrive all at once. It settles in layers, the way dusk settles, first in color, then in weight, then in the quiet rearrangement of distance. The ridge along the horizon appears closer now, though it has not moved. The light has thinned enough that the space between you and it feels less measurable. The land has not changed shape. It has simply softened in definition. You continue walking at a pace that feels unremarkable. Each step presses into the grass and lifts again without sound. The ground is firm beneath the thin layer of dry blades, and there is comfort in that firmness. It does not shift unexpectedly. It holds. The sky above has begun to flatten in tone. Where earlier there were faint gradations of color, now there is a more even wash, pale gray folding into a quieter blue. The change is so gradual that you would not notice it unless you allowed your gaze to rest for several breaths. You do, and it becomes clear that the sky is not darkening, so much as lowering, pressing gently closer without pressure. A faint chill slips into the air. It brushes along your wrists and across your cheek, then steadies. The warmth of the day has retreated into the soil. You can feel it rising faintly from the earth beneath your feet, meeting the cooler air midway. The exchange is balanced. There is a small stone near your path, smooth and rounded as though shaped by long seasons of wind. You pause and nudge it lightly with the edge of your shoe. It rolls once, twice, then comes to rest again. The movement leaves a shallow arc in the dust that will likely vanish by morning. The mark is simple, complete. The sky lowers another measure. It feels less like something above you and more like something around you. The openness does not diminish. It gathers inward as though enclosing the plane in a wide, gentle dome of air. The effect is not confining. It is steadying. You sit again, this time allowing your hands to rest in the grass. The blades cool your palms. A few cling lightly to your fingers before slipping free. The soil beneath carries a faint mineral scent, deeper now that the heat has lifted. It is not sharp, it is grounded. The horizon has softened further. The ridge line that once held its edge against the sky now blends more easily into it. The difference between land and air narrows by a subtle degree. You notice this without analyzing it. The body understands before the mind does. A single bird call threads across the distance, not loud, not repeated, just once. It lands somewhere beyond view and then dissolves into the open air. The quiet that follows is fuller for having held the sound. You draw in a slow breath. The air feels denser now, but not heavy. It gathers at the collarbone and then eases outward again. The movement of breath mirrors the movement of the plane, steady, wide, unforced. The sky continues lowering, not in height, but in presence. It feels closer, more encompassing. The light has thinned to a soft wash that touches everything evenly. There are no sharp shadows, no strong contrasts, only a gradual blending of form. You remain where you are for a moment longer, noticing how the stillness does not require maintenance. It is already here. The plane holds it. The air holds it. The sky lowers into it. And you remain within that lowering, not separate from it, not observing from a distance, simply part of the wide, quiet field as it settles toward evening. You rise from where you have been sitting and continue across the plain at the same unhurried pace. The grass parts in front of you and folds back into place behind you without leaving a visible trail. The land does not mark your passing. It absorbs it. The sky has lowered another subtle degree. It does not descend in color now, so much as in feeling. The air carries a faint density that rests lightly against your chest. You notice it not as weight, but as enclosure, as though the wide horizon has drawn inward just enough to cradle what lies beneath it. A shallow swell in the ground alters your footing by a fraction. The incline is soft and rounded. Your steps adjust without thought. There is no need to correct your balance. The body manages the shift and continues. The wind threads across the plain again, this time in a longer sweep. It moves through the grass in overlapping currents, creating a low ripple that travels outward from your position. The sound is not sharp. It resembles the faint hush of fabric being brushed in a distant room. It begins. It fades. Your rhythm settles into something even. Step, breath. The movements do not align deliberately, they coexist. The sky's color has narrowed toward a muted silver blue. No dramatic change, just a quiet smoothing of contrast. The horizon line is less defined now, its edge blending with the light above it. Distance becomes less measurable. You notice the way your shoulders lower by another small degree. The air cools slightly at the back of your neck. The shift is gradual enough that it feels earned rather than imposed. The ground beneath you carries a faint unevenness, shallow dips, and rises that keep your steps aware but not alert. Each shift of weight presses into the soil and releases. There is comfort in repetition without precision. Somewhere far off, a loose metal hinge moves once. The sound arrives softened by distance and air. It does not repeat. It simply exists for a breath and then dissolves into the surrounding quiet. The sky continues lowering into stillness. The breeze changes direction, subtle but noticeable. It approaches from the side now rather than from behind, brushing lightly against your sleeve and lifting the fabric before letting it fall. The sensation is brief. It leaves no trace. You pause again, not because the land requires it, but because stillness invites it. Standing in place, you notice how the open plain does not feel empty. It feels complete. The horizon now seems less like a boundary and more like a gentle curve. The ridge in the distance has softened into shape rather than line. Light has thinned enough that edges are suggested rather than drawn. You lower yourself once more to sit, this time on a slight rise. From here, the land spreads evenly in all directions. The sky does not dominate the view, it holds it. There is something steady about air that has begun to cool. It carries less movement. It rests closer to the surface of things. You can feel it settling along your forearms and at the base of your throat. The grass beside you bends in a slow rhythm as the wind passes in lighter strands. A few dry blades brush against your hand and then slide away. The contact is gentle, unremarkable. The sky lowers further, not in brightness, not in drama, but in nearness. It feels as though the distance between you and the atmosphere has shortened. Not enough to confine, just enough to gather. You draw a breath that feels slightly fuller than the last. The air expands inside your chest and then releases. The movement does not require effort, it follows its own arc. A faint scent rises from the soil, mineral and dry, touched by the day's stored warmth. It is subtle enough to notice only when you are still. The scent does not linger. It fades back into the open air. The light thins another fraction. The color of the plain shifts toward a deeper slate green. The grass no longer reflects the brightness of afternoon. It absorbs the quieter tone of evening. You stand again and resume walking. The pace remains unchanged. There is no need to reach a particular point on the horizon. The land continues evenly no matter where you step. Your shadow, once defined and angled, has softened into a faint suggestion at your side. It does not stretch far, it rests close. The sky lowers. Clouds that were once barely noticeable now blend into the broader wash of color. Their edges dissolve into the surrounding light. They do not gather. They do not threaten. They simply thin. The wind slows to nearly nothing. The air holds steady. In its steadiness, there is a quiet expansion, as though the plain has widened internally rather than outwardly. You feel the ground's firmness beneath each step. It does not shift, it supports. There is something quietly reassuring about land that has held countless evenings like this. The sky has lowered here before. The light has thinned here before. The grass has bent and risen and bent again through seasons that left no visible mark. You walk until the rise in the ground becomes level again. From here, the horizon appears as a faint arc. The sky seems closer still. It is not pressing. It is resting. The stillness deepens without instruction, and you remain within it, moving slowly across the open plain as the sky continues its quiet descent into presence. You continue walking, and the ground beneath you feels slightly cooler now, as though the warmth it held through the day has begun to withdraw into itself. The soles of your feet register the difference in temperature in the smallest way. It is not cold, just less warm. The shift is gentle and complete. The sky lowers another fraction. It does not dim dramatically. It does not shift into spectacle. Instead, it becomes denser in tone, the pale silver deepening toward a brushed steel gray that carries no weight of weather. The air between you and that sky feels closer, almost textured, as though it has thickened just enough to soften the scale of distance. You slow your steps without intending to. The pace adjusts to match the narrowing light. The horizon does not move toward you, yet it feels nearer. The land and the sky seem to have reached an understanding. A small cluster of grasses to your right leans together, their tips brushing lightly against one another. The faint sound resembles the turning of a thin page somewhere far away. It happens once. Then the movement settles. You pause again, this time simply because the stillness has deepened enough to notice. Standing in place, you become aware of how sound has altered. The wind no longer sweeps across the plain in broad currents. It passes in shorter strands, almost imperceptible, moving through only the topmost blades before fading. The absence of larger motion allows the land's quiet structure to become clearer. Your shoulders lower another degree. There is a sense that the sky is no longer overhead, but around you, not enclosing, not limiting, just present on all sides in a way that feels continuous rather than distant. The color of the grass shifts again, the green now touched with muted blue. The individual blades no longer reflect light sharply. They hold it in softer gradations. Edges are suggested, not outlined. You take another step. The plane stretches without interruption, yet it does not feel vast in a way that overwhelms. It feels proportionate, balanced. The kind of openness that allows the body to release unnecessary tension. A faint hum reaches you, so low and distant it might be imagined, perhaps wind brushing the far ridge or a loose wire settling against a post. The sound does not repeat. It merges into the air and disappears. The sky lowers further. The air carries a thin thread of coolness that settles lightly along your collarbone. You notice it the way one notices a shift in room temperature, quietly, without alarm. It finds its level against your skin and stays. You walk toward a shallow depression in the land where the grass grows slightly shorter. The ground here feels firmer. The change is subtle but distinct enough to register underfoot. The body adjusts without thought. There is something calming about repetition that does not demand attention. Step, pause, breath, step. The sequence does not strive for perfection. It continues because continuation is natural. The horizon has softened to the point where it feels less like a line and more like a curve, the faintest rounding of the world's edge. The sky and land meet without sharpness. You stop once more and turn slowly in place. The plane looks the same in every direction, open, balanced, even. No landmark draws your gaze. No object interrupts the field of view. It is a landscape without insistence. The sky lowers. The light now seems to gather closer to the ground, as though it prefers the surface of things rather than the space above them. It rests along the tops of grasses, along the subtle rises in the soil, along the faint swell where you stand. You kneel briefly and press your palm lightly to the earth. The soil is cool and dry, holding its shape. When you lift your hand, a faint imprint remains for only a moment before the grass beside it leans inward and obscures it. Nothing resists the change. You rise again, slower this time. The air feels smoother now, less textured by wind. It rests evenly against your face and hands. There is no movement in it beyond what your own body creates. Somewhere in the far distance, a bird calls once, a single note, low and brief. It does not echo. It lands softly within the open space and disappears. The sky lowers into stillness. The plain beneath you seems to widen internally rather than outwardly, as though the space between each blade of grass has expanded just enough to allow more quiet to settle. You begin walking once more, though your steps are almost indistinguishable from standing. The movement is small, measured, unhurried. The color of the sky now carries a faint gradient, slightly darker at the top, lighter near the horizon, but the shift is so gradual it feels continuous rather than segmented. There are no edges to follow. Your breathing has grown deeper without effort. Each inhale expands through your ribs and settles into your lower back. Each exhale releases without collapse. The rhythm continues on its own. The sky lowers again. The plane does not react. It accepts. And you remain within it, walking slowly across the open land as the sky draws closer, as the air cools and steadies, as the horizon softens and rounds, until the whole landscape feels gathered into one quiet field of presence, holding you without requiring anything more. You continue walking as the sky settles further, its tone deepening by such small increments that the shift feels less like change and more like continuity. The plane stretches without interruption, but the openness now carries a different quality. The earlier brightness has folded inward. Light does not travel as far across the grass as it did before. It rests closer to the surface. It lingers in smaller places. The air cools another degree. You feel it first along your wrists, then along your neck. It is not sharp, it does not arrive suddenly. It finds its level against your skin and stays there. Your steps grow quieter. The grass beneath you parts and then returns, bending and rising without resistance. A faint brushing sound accompanies each movement, not loud enough to define, just enough to register. It happens once per step. Then it fades. Somewhere behind you unseen, a distant gate shifts slightly in the breeze. The hinge gives a soft, metallic sigh. It does not repeat. The sound dissolves into the open air. You pause again. There is something steady about pausing in a place that does not expect progress. The land does not measure how far you have come. The horizon does not shift in response to your stillness. Everything remains proportionate. The sky lowers further. The color now holds a muted depth, not dark, not yet shadowed, simply richer. The edges of the grass blur slightly into one another as the light thins. Texture becomes more suggestion than detail. You turn your head slowly, taking in the breadth of the plain. No structure interrupts it. No tree breaks the line. The openness does not feel empty. It feels balanced. You begin walking again, this time angling slightly toward a subtle change in the ground ahead, a faint ripple where the land dips and rises again. The variation is so slight it could be overlooked. Yet your body notices, your pace adjusts. The air carries a trace of scent, dry earth cooling after warmth. It is barely perceptible. It settles somewhere behind your awareness, quiet and complete. The sky lowers. The sound of wind shifts once more, becoming thinner, less expansive. It no longer sweeps across the plain in broad strokes. It threads between the grasses and moves on. You step into the shallow dip in the land. The ground feels firmer here, compacted by years of subtle settling. Your foot presses down and meets resistance that feels steady and reassuring. The surface does not give way, it holds. A small ripple of grass to your left leans inward and then stills. There is something calming about repetition without urgency. Step, breath, step, breath. The sequence continues without improvement or decline. You notice how your shoulders rest now, lower than before. The muscles along your back feel unburdened by any demand to carry. Your arms hang loosely at your sides, fingers relaxed. The sky lowers into a softer gradient. The upper reaches darken slightly, while near the horizon the light persists, thin and horizontal. The two tones blend without contrast. A faint bird call reaches you again, farther away this time. Just one note. It hangs for a moment and then disappears. You walk to the edge of the shallow rise and stop. From here, the land appears almost level, the dip barely visible. The plain looks continuous again. The variation has folded back into uniformity. The air rests evenly against your skin. There is no rush toward night, no sudden change. Only the gradual narrowing of light and the quiet settling of space. You lower yourself to sit upon the grass. The blades compress gently beneath your weight, then hold. You feel the coolness through the fabric at your knees. The earth beneath remains steady and composed. The sky lowers further. The line of the horizon becomes less distinct. It no longer separates sky and land sharply. It blends them into one field of tone. You place your hands beside you in the grass and lean back slightly, allowing your gaze to rest upward. The expanse above feels closer now, not pressing, not enclosing, simply nearer. The openness does not recede, it gathers. A thin breeze passes once across your cheek, then stills. Somewhere far beyond sight, a distant door closes. The sound is softened by distance, barely audible, like the end of a sentence that does not require continuation. You remain seated. Breathing deepens without instruction. The plane does not shift. The sky does not hurry. The air does not cool beyond comfort. There is a sense that everything has reached an equilibrium, light and land, sound and stillness, movement and pause. You close your eyes briefly and listen. The quiet is not empty. It holds the faint hum of distance, the residual warmth in the soil, the subtle expansion of your breath. When you open them again, the sky has lowered another fraction. The grasses now appear as one continuous surface, individual blades less defined. The land feels unified. You do not need to move. The sky continues its gradual descent into stillness, and you remain within it, seated upon the open plain as the light thins, as the air cools, as the horizon softens, held by a landscape that asks nothing and changes only in the smallest, most measured ways. You remain seated, hands resting lightly in the grass, aware of how the earth supports without comment. The sky lowers another degree, not visibly at first, only in feeling. The brightness that once stretched wide now gathers closer to the horizon. The higher reaches soften into a deeper tone, not yet night, not quite day. A suspended hour. The air cools again only slightly. It brushes along your sleeves and settles at your collarbone. There is no edge to it. It simply arrives and rests there. You notice how still your body has become. Even the small adjustments, the shift of weight, the repositioning of your hands grow less frequent. The grass beneath you holds the imprint of your presence without resistance. A few blades lean against your wrist and remain there. Somewhere far off, something metallic taps once in the wind. A light, hollow sound. It does not repeat. The plane does not react. The horizon blurs further, land and sky merging into a single quiet band of tone. The distinction between above and below becomes softer, less defined. Your gaze no longer searches for a boundary, it simply rests. There is a steadiness in this lowering, no sudden dimming, no dramatic fall of light, just a gradual narrowing as though the sky is drawing a curtain one careful fold at a time. Your breathing continues. Inhale. Exhale. The rhythm does not demand attention. It carries itself. The grasses around you move once more, a faint ripple passing through them like a thought that arrives and then settles. The motion travels outward and disappears. You feel held by the openness, not surrounded, not enclosed, simply included. The sky lowers into stillness, and you remain where you are, seated upon the quiet earth, watching the final traces of brightness rest gently along the horizon before thinning further into calm. The sky continues lowering, though it no longer feels like a movement you are watching. It feels closer to something you are inside. The last pale seam of light stretches along the horizon, long and even, neither bright nor dim. It does not rush toward night. It simply narrows, almost imperceptibly, as though the world is drawing itself inward. The grasses lean and lift in a small breath of air, then settle. You notice the sound they make, not quite a rustle, not quite a whisper. It is closer to a brushing, a dry, careful sound that rounds at the edges and disappears as soon as it forms. The ground beneath you holds its warmth, not the heat of midday, not the sharp cool of night. A residual warmth that has been resting there all afternoon, now easing upward through fabric and skin. It does not press. It lingers. There is something reassuring about warmth that does not try to hold you, only meets you where you are. The horizon softens further. The distance between sky and earth becomes less certain. Colors thin. Blues lean towards slate. Golds fold into pale ash. The transition is so gradual it feels less like change and more like continuation. Your eyes do not strain to follow it, they rest. The air settles again, and with it, your shoulders lower a fraction. It is not deliberate, it is not a decision. It is simply the body responding to scale, to the way the sky's widening quiet makes everything else smaller, lighter, easier to release. A single bird crosses the high space above you. Its wings do not beat quickly. They glide once, twice, and then it moves beyond your field of vision. The movement is not dramatic. It is simply part of the evening's narrowing. The grasses shift again, this time in a broader sweep. A shallow wave travels across the plain and dissolves at its own edges. You realize you are no longer listening for something to happen. There is no next moment to anticipate. The sky lowers into stillness, and you are already aligned with it. Your breathing adjusts again, a little slower now, not forced, not counted, just lengthening in response to the scale around you. The inhale rounds at its peak. The exhale extends without effort. There is a kind of patience in open land. It does not hurry dusk along. It does not resist it either. It simply receives what comes and releases what has passed. You feel that same patience in your chest. The seam of light narrows further. Now it is a thin band, pale and horizontal, holding the last trace of brightness. Above it, the sky deepens. Below it, the earth darkens into quiet texture. The distinction remains, but faintly. The grasses nearest your hands catch the final light. Each blade holds a narrow edge of brightness before letting it go. One catches slightly longer than the rest, a faint silver line along its curve. Then that too dims. It is subtle, you almost miss it. The air moves once more, cooler now. It touches your cheek, slides along your sleeve, and settles at your wrists. The temperature change is slight, but the body notices. You feel the outline of yourself less sharply, not disappearing, just less defined against the scale around you. The sky lowers further, and the plane receives it without commentary. A small sound, perhaps a distant gate shifting, perhaps something wooden settling, reaches you and fades. It is neither close nor far. It simply exists for a moment and then becomes part of the wider hush. You remain seated, hands resting, breath steady. There is no need to adjust your posture. The ground supports exactly the weight you give it. The light thins again. Now it is less a seam and more a suggestion, a pale memory along the horizon line. The grass is still. The air holds. Even the faint sounds of distant movement have quieted. You become aware of the space above you, vast, uninterrupted, stretching in all directions. It does not feel overwhelming. It feels stable, like a ceiling without walls. The sky lowers into stillness, and with it, your thoughts loosen. Not erased, not forced away, just thinning the way color thins at the edge of evening. A small crease in the fabric at your elbow presses lightly against your skin. You notice it, and then it fades from awareness. The plane does not change quickly. It deepens. The last trace of brightness along the horizon dissolves into a darker tone, not abrupt, not sudden. The transition feels like a soft exhale across miles. You follow it without trying. Inhale, exhale. The air now carries a faint coolness that settles into the spaces between breaths. It does not chill, it balances. There is something steady in this hour. No urgency, no direction, just the slow rounding of light into night. You feel smaller, perhaps, but not insignificant, simply part of the same quiet adjustment. The grasses, now darker, sway once more in a shallow arc and come to rest. The sky above becomes a uniform depth, and the land beneath you holds its shape, even as detail softens. The boundary between where you end and where the evening begins grows less exact. Your hands rest in the grass. Your breath moves, the sky lowers, and the stillness deepens around you, not as an event, but as a continuation. You are not watching it anymore. You are within it. The depth of the sky grows more even, not darker in a dramatic way, just fuller. The color above you becomes less layered and more continuous, as though the last gradients have folded inward and agreed to rest. You do not feel the need to track it anymore. Your eyes soften. The horizon is still there, but it no longer asks to be observed. A faint thread of cooler air slides across the plain. It brushes the grasses in a long, shallow sweep. You hear it before you feel it, a low, textured hush that gathers, moves, and eases away. The sound does not carry tension, it carries distance. Your breath follows the same pattern. It gathers, it moves, it eases. The ground beneath you has released most of its warmth now, though not entirely. There remains a quiet echo of heat where the day once pressed. It seeps upward in small, fading currents. Your palms register it faintly through the grass, then adjust. There is something deeply settling about warmth that leaves gradually. It never feels abrupt. It never feels taken away. The sky above no longer seems to lower in motion. It feels placed, as though it has reached its position for the night and is content to remain there. The scale of it no longer expands, it steadies. And with that steadiness, your thoughts thin further, not disappearing, just slowing their arrival. You become aware of the weight of your own outline, the way your shoulders meet the air, the way your legs rest against the ground. The awareness does not sharpen, it rounds. A faint scent drifts across the plain, dry earth cooling, a trace of wild grass bending. The smell is light, barely there, but the body recognizes it as familiar. You've been somewhere like this before. Not this exact place, but this hour. This moment where color retreats and the world exhales at once. A small movement near your hand draws a fraction of your attention, perhaps a single blade shifting independently, perhaps a tiny creature adjusting its position in the soil. It makes no noise, it leaves no trace. The evening absorbs it, the air stills again. Now there is almost no movement across the plain. The grasses stand in soft silhouettes. The sky above has become a deep, even field without edges. Your breathing has slowed further. It happens without instruction. Inhale, pause, exhale, longer now. There is no need to deepen it. It deepens on its own. The boundary between your breathing and the quiet around you grows less noticeable. The rhythm feels shared. The world does not move faster than you. It does not move slower. It simply matches. The sky lowers into stillness, and your awareness widens, not outward, but gently diffused. You notice the small weight of your clothing where it gathers at your wrists, the faint pressure at your ankles, the way your spine settles a fraction deeper into ease. There is no adjustment required. The ground continues to hold you. The plain continues to widen, though you no longer perceive its edges. A distant sound reaches you, so faint it could almost be imagined. Perhaps the call of a night bird far beyond sight. It lasts only a moment, then it fades. It does not echo, it simply becomes part of the wider hush. The sky now feels complete in its darkness. Not heavy, not enclosing, just present. You are aware of the space above you without needing to look at it. A dome of quiet depth stretching without interruption. The absence of light feels calm rather than empty. Your breath steadies again. It has found its level. There is something quietly grounding about this hour. No demand, no shift, no unfolding beyond what is already here. The grasses move once more, a small ripple shorter than before, and settle, then remain still. The temperature cools another degree, barely noticeable, enough to mark the passage from evening to night. Your skin registers it gently and then relaxes into it. The last trace of day has fully thinned, and the sky, now lowered into complete stillness, holds its place above you without movement. You do not feel beneath it, you feel within it. The plain stretches in all directions, but it no longer feels wide. It feels continuous, seamless. Your thoughts drift in and out like faint clouds crossing a dark field. They do not gather. They do not persist. They thin. And in their thinning, something steadier remains. The night has arrived, not announced, not dramatic, just present, and you are already aligned with its quiet. The sky has settled into its depth now, and the plain has accepted the quiet without resistance. The grasses no longer shift in long ripples. Instead, they move in smaller, scattered gestures, a single stem bending, a cluster leaning and returning, the faintest brush of blade against blade. The sound is dry and hushed. It does not travel far. You remain where you are. The earth beneath you feels firmer now that its warmth has thinned. The earlier softness has given way to a steadier support. There is a slight indentation where your weight has rested, not deep, just enough to register that you have been here a while. Your breath continues in its own rhythm. Inhale, exhale, there is no effort to slow it. It has already found the pace that suits the hour. Above you, the sky holds its darkened color without variation. No streaks remain, no fading light lingers at the edges. The last gradients have folded inward and disappeared. What remains is even and uninterrupted. You notice how sound behaves differently now. Earlier, the wind carried across distance in broad strokes. Now it arrives in fragments, a faint stirring near your left shoulder, a subtle movement across the grasses near your feet, then stillness again. The pauses are longer. The world is not empty. It is simply resting between movements. There is something deeply reassuring about that. The plane does not need to be filled. It does not require constant motion. It does not depend on activity to remain whole. It simply is. A faint scent lingers in the air, dry stems cooling, soil releasing the last of the day's heat. It is almost imperceptible, yet your body recognizes it instantly. It belongs to this hour, to this lowering of light. You shift your awareness gently outward, not searching, just noticing. The horizon has disappeared into the same depth as the sky. There is no clear line dividing earth from air. The two have blended into a shared quiet. Your outline softens with them, not dissolving, just less defined. There is a slight tension in your jaw you had not noticed before. It eases. Your shoulders lower another fraction. You do not direct this. It happens on its own. A distant sound rises and fades, perhaps a small animal moving through grass, perhaps the faint echo of wings lifting and settling somewhere beyond sight. It lasts no longer than a breath. Then it is gone. The plane absorbs it. The darkness remains steady. You become aware of the weight of your hands resting against the ground. The texture beneath your fingertips is uneven, tiny ridges in the soil, the fine edges of broken stems, a faint grit that shifts as you press lightly. The detail does not pull you outward. It anchors you gently. There is a small crease in the fabric at your wrist where it has folded against itself. You notice it without adjusting it. It does not need smoothing. The air cools again, not dramatically, just enough that your skin registers the change and settles deeper into stillness. The sky above feels closer now, not because it has moved, because you have. Your attention no longer reaches upward, it rests within the space itself. There is something about open land at night that feels both vast and contained at once. The absence of walls does not create exposure, it creates continuity. You are not surrounded, you are held within. Your breath aligns with the slow exchange of air across the plain. Each inhale feels slightly fuller than before, though not larger. Each exhale longer, though not deliberate. The grasses near your ear shift again, a faint whisper of movement. The sound is so small it almost dissolves before it forms. Then quiet returns. There is no expectation of the next sound, no anticipation of what might follow, only this steady presence. A memory brushes the edge of your awareness, not a full image, not a story. Just the sense of another evening somewhere long ago when the sky lowered in the same way and the world became wide and unhurried. It does not develop. It drifts through and passes. The night does not ask you to hold it. The ground beneath you feels slightly cooler now. The earlier trace of warmth has almost entirely left. Your body adjusts again without instruction. You feel heavier, not in weight, in stillness. The darkness above has grown uniform enough that your eyes no longer attempt to distinguish shapes within it. They rest instead. The effort of seeing has thinned. A faint mechanical hum far beyond the plane, perhaps from a distant structure unseen, rises briefly and then settles. It does not intrude. It feels like part of the larger field of sound. Contained, the quiet that follows feels deeper for its passing. Your breathing continues. There is something steady about the repetition of it, a rhythm that does not demand attention yet remains constant enough to rely on. The sky lowers into stillness, and you lower with it, not physically. Internally, your thoughts have grown sparse now. When they appear, they are slower, less sharp. They drift like faint shapes crossing a darkened field and then vanish without leaving a trace. You do not pursue them, you do not resist them. They come and go. The grasses lie nearly flat now in the absence of wind. Only an occasional tremor passes through them, brief and contained. The plain feels endless yet intimate, a paradox that makes sense only in moments like this. Your spine eases further into alignment with the earth. The muscles along your back release incrementally, as though responding to a signal too subtle to name. There is no effort in this release. It happens because the world around you has grown quiet enough to allow it. The darkness has deepened to its fullest shade. There are no visible stars yet, or perhaps they are too faint to distinguish. The sky reads as one unbroken surface. It does not feel empty, it feels complete. A small shift of your foot against the grass produces a soft, dry sound. You notice it, then stillness resumes. Even your smallest movements feel absorbed into the larger quiet. There is something comforting about that. Nothing echoes back loudly. Nothing amplifies. Everything remains proportionate. You sense the breadth of the plain again, though you do not measure it. The distance between you and the unseen edges no longer matters. Scale has lost its urgency. You are simply here, breathing, resting. The night continues lowering, and you continue easing. A faint ripple passes through the grasses once more, smaller than before. It does not carry far. It brushes the surface and fades. The air has cooled to the point where your skin no longer distinguishes change. It has settled into its temperature for the night. The world has reached equilibrium. And so have you. Your breath flows in and out without interruption. Your body rests fully against the ground. The sky remains steady above. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to follow. Only this shared stillness expanding quietly in every direction, including inward. And in that expansion, your awareness grows softer, wider, and less defined, not disappearing, just settling into the same depth as the night itself. The night has reached a depth that feels complete now, and yet it continues. There is no shift you can point to, no clear moment when the sky changed from evening to full darkness. It happened gradually. So gradually that your body adjusted without noticing. You remain seated on the open plain. The earth beneath you holds your weight without resistance. The grasses lie flatter now, their earlier motion reduced to the smallest tremors. The air has cooled enough that your skin no longer marks the change. It simply accepts it. Above you, the sky is an even field of dark. And yet, if you rest your eyes long enough, faint differences begin to appear, not brightness exactly, but texture. The depth is not blank. It has layers, subtle gradations that reveal themselves only when you stop trying to see them. You are not searching. You are resting within the view. A star appears, not suddenly. It has likely been there for some time, but your awareness settles into it only now. A small, steady point in the vastness. It does not flicker dramatically. It simply holds its place. Then another and another. They are spaced far apart, not clustered. Each one distinct, contained, quiet. The sky does not brighten. It deepens. The earth beneath you cools another fraction. You feel the firmness of soil more clearly now. A slight ridge presses against your palm. You do not adjust. It becomes part of the larger field of sensation. There is a faint scent rising from the ground. Dry grasses, mineral earth, the last trace of warmth releasing into the air. It is subtle enough that it blends with breath. Inhale, exhale, your breathing has grown almost soundless. There is something steady about that repetition. It does not ask for attention. It does not need managing. It simply continues. The horizon has disappeared completely now. Earth and sky share the same shade. There is no dividing line. The plane feels boundless in every direction, and yet you do not feel small within it. You feel proportionate. There is something about open space at night that removes comparison. There are no walls to measure yourself against, no ceilings to define height, no edges to limit reach. Scale becomes irrelevant. A faint stirring moves through the grasses to your right. It travels only a short distance before fading. The sound is soft, almost granular, stems brushing lightly against one another, then stillness again. You notice how long the pauses have become. The quiet does not feel empty. It feels complete. Your shoulders lower another fraction. A small release along your spine follows, subtle and unforced. The muscles respond to the absence of noise, to the absence of light, to the absence of demand. Nothing is required of you here. You are not waiting. You are not anticipating. You are simply within. The stars have multiplied slightly now, not enough to illuminate the ground, but enough to give the sky a gentle texture. They are not bright points competing for attention. They are quiet presences, each holding steady in its own place. There is something reassuring about their consistency. They do not rush, they do not flare, they remain. Your breath aligns with that steadiness. The air feels cooler near your collarbone now. A faint breeze passes and moves on. It does not linger. It does not gather force. It touches and releases. You become aware of the weight of your legs against the earth. The contact is firm, grounding. There is a slight indentation in the grass where you have been sitting. A small crease in the flattened stems marks your presence. It does not disturb the plane, it blends with it. There is a faint mechanical hum far beyond the horizon, so distant it feels imagined. It rises briefly and settles back into silence, not intrusive, just another thread in the larger fabric of sound, then nothing. The plane holds the quiet easily. Your thoughts have grown sparse now. When one forms, it does so slowly. It lingers for a moment, then thins and disperses without effort. You do not follow it, you do not hold it. It passes like a faint cloud across a sky too wide to contain it. The darkness has weight now, not heavy, but present. It rests gently against your shoulders, your face, your hands. It does not press, it surrounds. You are not observing the night, you are within it. The grasses near your left foot shift slightly as if adjusting their position. The sound is dry, contained. It does not travel far. It remains local, intimate. Then stillness returns. You notice how your body has grown quieter as well. The small adjustments you made earlier have ceased. Even your jaw rests more easily now. Your tongue lies loosely behind your teeth. Your eyes do not search the sky. They rest within it. There is something deeply calming about this stage of night when everything has settled into its final form, when no further changes are expected. The sky will not brighten again until morning. The plain will not warm again until sunlight returns. For now, everything has reached equilibrium, and so have you. Your breathing continues smooth and even. Inhale, exhale. The stars seem slightly brighter now, or perhaps your perception has sharpened. A faint band stretches across the sky, not luminous, just subtly textured. It does not demand recognition, it simply exists. The ground beneath you feels steadier than before. The earlier softness has given way to a firmer support. You sense the density of soil, the quiet compression beneath your weight. There is no discomfort, only contact. A faint ripple moves through the grasses again, farther this time, though still restrained. It travels across the surface and dissolves into silence. The air has grown still once more. You feel the outline of your body soften, not disappearing, not dissolving, but less sharply defined. The edges that once separated skin from air feel gentler, less pronounced. The boundary has thinned, not dramatically, gradually. There is something about sustained quiet that does this. It reduces contrast, it lowers edges, it brings everything into the same depth. Your awareness expands slightly, not outward, but in all directions at once. The plane, the sky, your breath, they exist in the same field now. No hierarchy, no center. A faint memory brushes the edge of your mind, not an image, not a story, just the sense of having sat somewhere like this before, under a sky this wide, in a silence this complete. It does not fully form. It drifts through and fades. The stars remain steady. Your breath remains steady. The plane remains steady. There is nothing here that requires interpretation, nothing that asks for response. The world has reached a kind of still perfection, not idealized, not heightened, simply settled. The darkness feels softer now, though not lighter. It holds its depth without tension. It does not threaten, it does not press, it cradles. Your hands rest easily against the ground. A faint grain of soil shifts beneath your fingertip as you exhale. You notice it, then you forget it. The night continues lowering into stillness, and you continue lowering with it, not downward. Inward, your thoughts have nearly ceased now. When they appear, they are faint and slow. They do not catch, they do not spiral, they pass. The grasses lie nearly motionless. The breeze has withdrawn entirely. The plane feels suspended in a long, unbroken pause. You are part of that pause. The sky above is wide and unchanging. The stars hold their positions. Your breathing remains even. There is nowhere else to go, nothing else to adjust. Only this shared depth, expanding gently in every direction above you, around you, within you. The sky lowers into stillness, and you remain, held quietly in its vast, unhurried calm. The night has not changed abruptly. It has settled. You remain seated beneath the wide expanse, the dark now fully established, no longer in transition. The lowering you sensed earlier has completed its slow descent. The sky is not falling, it is resting. And in that rest, something in you responds. Your shoulders ease. The muscles along your back lengthen without instruction. Your hands lie open against the ground. The soil beneath your palms holds a quiet firmness, neither cold nor warm now, simply present. Above you, the sky is vast, but no longer imposing. Its depth feels familiar. You are not looking up at it so much as existing within its scale. The distance between you and the stars feels less like separation and more like shared space. A faint current of air passes across the plain. It does not gather force. It moves lightly, brushing the tops of the grasses, carrying a thin coolness that touches your cheek and then continues on. The movement is so slight that it leaves no lasting impression. It simply shifts the surface for a moment, then stillness returns. There is a rhythm to this openness, not a beat, not a pulse, a cycle. The air moves, it settles, the grasses stir, they rest. Your breath rises, it falls. The cycles overlap without synchronizing perfectly. They exist alongside one another, layered and unforced. You notice how long the pauses have become. Long enough that the sound of your own breathing feels distant. Long enough that the quiet seems to stretch. The plane does not shrink in darkness. It expands. Without the sharp edges of daylight, distances blur. The horizon is no longer a line dividing land and sky. It has softened into a shared gradient. You cannot see where the earth ends and the atmosphere begins, and yet you do not need to. Your body remains grounded. The weight of your legs against the soil is steady. The subtle indentation in the grass beneath you has deepened slightly, the stems bending without protest. There is a faint scent of crushed green beneath your hands, not strong, just enough to register. You inhale. The air carries a trace of dryness, a mineral quietness that belongs only to open land at night. There is something deeply calming about air that has cooled without hurry. It feels clean, deliberate, as if the day has exhaled fully and left behind only what is essential. Your awareness begins to widen again, not outward in a searching way, in all directions at once. The sky above feels both infinite and close. The stars appear steadier now, their light unwavering. A faint shimmer moves across one small cluster, not from flicker, but from the subtle shift of your focus. You do not chase it, you allow your gaze to rest. A single distant sound reaches you, the faintest hum, perhaps from something mechanical far beyond the plane. It lasts only a moment before dissolving back into silence. It does not intrude, it blends. You remain. The ground beneath you has grown cooler still. A deeper firmness rises through the soil as the surface releases the last of the day's warmth. Your spine aligns naturally, as though responding to that solidity. You are not adjusting your posture. It is adjusting you. There is no effort in it. The darkness no longer feels like an absence of light. It feels like a texture of its own. It has weight. Not heavy, not pressing, simply present. It rests across your shoulders like fabric laid gently there. You become aware of the outline of your body in a new way, not sharper, softer. The air around your arms and torso feels closer now, less distinct from your skin. The boundary is subtle. Your breath continues slow and even. Inhale, exhale. The sky remains unchanged, and yet it feels deeper. The stars appear to recede and approach simultaneously, not in movement, but in perception. Their distance no longer registers as far, it registers as quiet. There is something about looking into darkness that invites stillness. The eye has less to process, the mind has less to sort, thoughts grow sparse. The plain stretches in every direction, unmarked, unbroken. No buildings, no fences, no trees interrupting the horizon. Only space. You are within that space, and it is within you. A faint ripple crosses the grasses again, closer this time. It begins to your right and moves slowly across the surface. The sound is soft, almost granular, as stems brush against one another. Then it fades. The movement does not return immediately. You notice how your body mirrors that pattern, small stirrings followed by longer pauses. A subtle shift in your shoulder, a slight release in your jaw, then stillness. The air has become nearly motionless now. The temperature has settled into its final balance for the night. You feel it along your wrists. There is something steady about this stage of night when everything has reached equilibrium. Nothing is building, nothing is falling, everything is simply present. You are not waiting for the next change. There may not be one. The sky does not need to deepen further. It has already arrived at its fullest expression of darkness. The stars do not need to multiply, they are enough as they are. The plane does not need to shift. You do not need to shift. Your awareness begins to feel less anchored to your body and more distributed across the scene. The sensation is gradual. It is not dramatic. It is like a lens widening imperceptibly. The soil beneath your palms feels less separate from the skin touching it. The air across your face feels less like something external and more like a shared field. There is no loss of grounding, only a soft expansion. You notice a faint texture in the night sky, not visible, but sensed. A depth within the darkness that suggests layers upon layers of space beyond what you can perceive. You are not trying to imagine them. You simply allow the possibility to exist. A small shift of weight moves through your torso. The grass beneath you compresses another fraction. A faint crease forms in the flattened stems, a subtle mark of your presence. It does not disturb the plane. It belongs there. The quiet feels more complete now than it did earlier. It has thickened slightly, not with sound, but with consistency. The longer you sit within it, the more it stabilizes. Your breathing has become almost imperceptible. Your hands remain open. Your shoulders remain lowered. There is something reassuring about how nothing insists on your attention. No bright lights, no sudden noises, no interruptions. The plane offers space without expectation. The sky offers depth without demand. You feel the weight of your body supported from below and the vastness of the sky resting gently above. You are suspended between two steady forces, earth and atmosphere, neither pulling, neither pushing, balanced. A faint warmth lingers near the center of your chest, not emotional, not narrative, simply the natural warmth of breath moving through you. Inhale, exhale. The grasses are nearly still now. Only the smallest tremors remain, so subtle they are almost imagined. The stars hold their positions. The night continues lowering into stillness, and you continue lowering with it, not disappearing, not dissolving, settling. Your outline softens further. The distinction between where you end and the air begins grows less pronounced. The soil beneath your hands feels less like ground and more like shared substance. There is no urgency in this merging. It is gradual, earned. You remain aware of your body, but the awareness is quieter now, less central. It is as though the scene has widened enough to hold both you and the plane in equal measure. Nothing is excluded, nothing is emphasized. The sky deepens another shade, not darker, but richer. The stars feel steadier against it, more anchored. The plane breathes lightly beneath you, and you rest within its vast, settled calm. The stillness does not arrive all at once. It gathers. You remain where you are, beneath the open sky, the plane stretching outward in every direction, its surface now almost entirely subdued. The grasses that once shifted in small waves have settled into a quiet arrangement. A few blades still lean against one another, forming faint crossings that only the night can hold. Your breathing continues. There is no effort in it. The air feels denser now, not heavy, but layered, as though the atmosphere itself has found a lower resting point. It moves less, it presses less. It simply surrounds. You notice how your spine has softened into the ground, not collapsed, not rigid, supported. The soil beneath you has cooled further. The warmth from earlier has thinned to a faint memory in the uppermost layer. Beneath that, the earth is steady and constant, carrying a depth that does not fluctuate with the hour. You feel it in your palms, in the backs of your arms, in the weight of your legs. There is something deeply reassuring about ground that does not move. Above you, the sky has lowered into its fullest expression of night. The earlier gradient between deep blue and charcoal has unified into a seamless dark. The stars do not flicker now, they hold. You rest your gaze somewhere between them, not choosing one, not tracing constellations, simply allowing your eyes to soften. The distance no longer feels vast, it feels quiet. A faint shift in the air brushes across your forehead, so light it might have been imagined. It carries no scent now, only a clean coolness that belongs to open land after the day has fully receded. Then even that small movement fades. You notice the absence of movement more clearly than any sound. It is not silence in the sense of emptiness. It is silence in the sense of completion. The plane does not need to adjust further. The sky does not need to deepen. Everything has reached its settled state. Your thoughts have followed. They move more slowly now, and when they do appear, they pass through without staying. There is no narrative forming, only fragments, a sense of space, a faint memory of light from earlier, then nothing again. You feel the outline of your body less distinctly. Your shoulders are still there. Your arms are still resting against the ground, but the sharpness of edges has softened. The air feels closer to your skin, or perhaps your awareness has widened. It is difficult to tell. A single star brightens briefly, not dramatically, just enough that your eye registers the shift. It holds that brightness for a moment, then returns to its prior steadiness. A tiny anchor, then stillness again. The grasses no longer whisper against one another. They rest as they are. If a sound were to occur, it would travel clearly across the plain. But none does. The quiet holds. You sense the scale of the land more fully now. The horizon is invisible, yet you feel its distance. The earth extends beyond what you can see, and the sky above it extends further still. You are not small within it, you are part of it. Your breath has become the most consistent movement in the scene, even that is subtle. The rise and fall of your chest is minimal, almost imperceptible from the outside. Inside, it feels steady. There is no need to deepen it, no need to slow it. It continues as it always has. The ground beneath you carries faint irregularities, small dips where roots once pushed upward, slight firmness where stones lie beneath the surface. You feel these variations through the pressure points of your body, but they do not distract. They anchor. A crease forms in the grass beneath your elbow where the weight has settled for some time. The stems bend without resistance, accepting the new shape. You notice it, then let it be. The darkness around you is complete now. It no longer shifts, it no longer deepens. It has found its final tone for the night. There is something profoundly calming about that finality, not as an ending, but as equilibrium. The air does not cool further. The soil does not release more warmth. The sky does not gather more stars. Everything has reached its resting point. You feel your awareness lower another fraction. It is not sleep yet. It is the space before sleep, the place where nothing is required. Your body feels less like a separate form and more like a continuation of the ground beneath it. The weight of you is supported from below. The vastness above rests lightly across your shoulders. You are between two steady forces, held. A faint sound reaches you, so faint it might have come from a great distance. Perhaps the smallest click of cooling metal from something unseen far across the plain. It does not repeat, it dissolves. The night absorbs it without ripple. Your gaze drifts slightly to the left. The stars remain unchanged. Their positions do not alter. Their light continues uninterrupted. You notice how your neck no longer strains to hold your head upright. The muscles have relaxed into a natural alignment. Your jaw rests unclenched. There is a softness now that does not feel constructed. It has emerged naturally through stillness. The plane does not demand attention, it offers space. And in that space, your thoughts thin further. The boundary between your breathing and the movement of the air grows less distinct. The inhale feels less like something you initiate and more like something that occurs within the shared atmosphere. Air moves, lungs respond, there is no separation. You feel the faint outline of your heartbeat, not as a pronounced pulse, but as a gentle rhythm beneath the surface. It does not quicken, it does not slow, it simply continues. The sky above holds its depth. The earth below holds its firmness. Between them, you remain no longer separate from the quiet, but resting inside it. The grasses are entirely still now. The faint crease beneath your elbow remains. The star that brightened earlier holds steady among the others. Nothing has changed, and yet everything feels more settled. You sense the vastness not as distance, but as calm. The horizon may be invisible, but you feel it encircling the plain, wide, continuous, unbroken. Your awareness widens once more, not outward in effort, outward by absence. The edges soften further. The air feels closer. The ground feels nearer. The sky feels less remote. You are not dissolving into darkness. You are resting within it. The quiet holds. And within that quiet, your body grows lighter, not lifted, not floating, simply less defined. Your hands remain open. Your shoulders remain lowered. Your breath continues. The plane does not shift. The sky does not lower further. Everything has reached its steady state, and you rest within it, balanced between earth and atmosphere, supported by both, required by neither, present in the wide, settled calm of night. The stillness deepens, though nothing visibly changes. You remain beneath the lowered sky, and the plane remains stretched in every direction, but the quality of your awareness shifts again, almost imperceptibly, like a tide turning without a visible crest. Your breathing has grown quieter, not slower by intention, quieter by nature. The air enters and leaves without drawing attention to itself. It feels as though the atmosphere and your lungs have reached an agreement, a shared rhythm that requires no negotiation. The ground beneath you carries your weight without commentary. It does not adjust. It does not settle further. It has accepted the shape of you and remains as it is. There is something profoundly steady about that. Above you, the sky holds its depth without variation. The stars are neither brighter nor dimmer. They do not rearrange. They do not flicker in any noticeable way. They simply remain points of quiet presence suspended in a field of dark. You notice how little effort it takes now to keep your eyes open. Your gaze rests somewhere between two distant lights, then widens, then rests again. The grasses around you no longer register as individual blades. They have become a single, textured field, an extension of the plane that surrounds you. Earlier, you could sense the subtle crossings of stems, the faint pressure where they met your skin. Now those distinctions have softened into a general awareness of support. Your body is less outlined, not vanished, just less separate. You feel the temperature of the air against your cheek. It is cool, but not sharp. It does not ask you to react, it simply exists. There is no need to shift your position, no impulse to move. The vastness overhead does not press downward. It hovers gently, neither near nor far. The distance between you and the stars feels abstract, not measurable, not important. A faint shift in the air passes across the plain, so subtle it barely stirs the grasses. You register it, and then it is gone. Silence returns. The horizon, though invisible in the darkness, feels present, a steady line encircling the space. You sense its continuity more than you see it. It holds the land in a wide embrace, preventing the vastness from feeling uncontained. You are within that containment, not small, not large, simply present. Your awareness lowers another degree. Thoughts, if they arise, do so faintly, like distant lights beyond the plain. They do not linger, they do not gather into meaning. They drift through and dissolve before forming edges. The ground beneath you has cooled completely now. There is no trace of the day's warmth. It feels neutral, balanced. The sky feels the same, balanced. Between them you rest. The rhythm of your breath continues to align with the openness around you. Inhale, a subtle expansion. Exhale, a gentle return. There is no need to deepen it. It carries itself. You notice the faintest tension in your shoulders release without instruction. A small letting go that occurs naturally, as if the muscles have decided they are no longer required to hold anything in place. They soften. Your jaw follows. Your hands remain open against the grass. There is something deeply reassuring about how the night does not demand performance. It does not expect you to think, to feel, to respond. It holds you exactly as you are. The plane does not change shape. The sky does not shift color. Everything remains steady. And in that steadiness, the boundary between you and the landscape thins further. You are aware of your body, but it no longer feels isolated. The ground supports you in the same way it supports the grasses. The air moves across you in the same way it moves across the open field. There is no distinction. A single distant sound reaches you, perhaps the faintest rustle of something settling far across the plain. It does not repeat. It fades almost immediately, absorbed by the breadth of space. The silence afterward feels even fuller. You sense how the night has reached its deepest tone now. There is no further lowering, no additional softening. This is the steady state of darkness. Your breathing becomes quieter still. It is difficult to tell where the inhale begins, difficult to mark where the exhale ends. They merge into a continuous rhythm. The stars above remain unchanged. The grasses remain still. The ground remains firm. You feel the outline of your body blur at the edges. The sensation of your legs, your arms, your shoulders is present but faint. The pressure points that once registered clearly have blended into a general sense of contact. You are held, not confined, held. There is something almost intimate about this stage of night, the way it wraps the plane without announcement, the way it steadies everything without force. You have stood in nights like this before, even if not here. There is a familiarity to it, a recognition that requires no memory. The vastness no longer feels expansive in a stimulating way. It feels protective, enclosed by its own scale. You let your eyes close for a moment. The darkness behind them mirrors the darkness above. There is no difference. When your eyes open again, the stars are where they were. The sky has not shifted. Your breathing remains even. The air brushes lightly against your forehead, then stillness again. Your body feels less like a shape against the ground and more like a continuation of it. The weight of you spreads evenly. There is no single point of pressure drawing attention. You are not dissolving. You are blending. The plane continues to hold its quiet. The sky continues to rest above it. The horizon continues to encircle. Everything remains in balance. Your awareness thins further. The edges soften until they feel almost indistinct. The grasses at your side are no longer separate from the field. The field is no longer separate from the darkness. The darkness is no longer separate from the sky, and you are not separate from any of it. The stillness has reached its fullest depth. There is nothing more to lower, nothing more to soften, nothing more to release. You rest within the wide, quiet equilibrium of the night, grounded by the earth beneath you, held by the sky above, and suspended in the gentle, continuous rhythm that neither begins nor ends. The night has settled into its deepest register now. Not darker, not quieter, simply complete. You remain where you are, beneath the sky that has lowered into stillness, your body resting against the earth without tension, without urgency. The plane stretches outward in every direction, unchanged, and yet it feels different now, not because it has shifted, but because your awareness has grown softer inside it. Your breathing continues light and unforced. Inhale, exhale. There is no effort attached to either. The air is cool enough to be felt, but not enough to disturb. It moves across your skin with the same neutrality it offers the grasses, the distant stones, the faint undulations in the land. You notice how little separates you from what surrounds you now. Earlier, there were distinctions, the feel of ground against your back, the sense of sky above your face, the faint outline of your limbs resting within the grass. Now those lines have blurred. You are aware of your body, but it no longer feels contained by edges. The earth beneath you holds steady. It does not shift, does not compress further. It simply supports. There is something deeply reassuring about that kind of support, the kind that does not announce itself. You do not need to adjust your position. You do not need to move your hands. They rest where they have fallen, palms open, fingers slightly curved. The grass threads lightly between them, neither clinging nor withdrawing. The sky above remains wide and unbroken. The stars do not compete for attention. They are present but not insistent. Their light arrives softly, crossing the distance without hurry. You notice how the scale of everything has settled into proportion. The vastness no longer feels expansive. It feels balanced. You are not small beneath it. You are simply part of it. A faint hush moves across the plain, not quite wind, not quite silence. It passes through the grasses with a low, almost imperceptible sound. The sound does not linger. It dissolves into the broader quiet. Your breath continues. It is easy to forget that you are breathing at all. The rhythm is there, steady and even, but it does not require monitoring. It aligns naturally with the pace of the night. There is a softness in your shoulders now that was not there before. The muscles that once held subtle tension have eased, not because you ask them to, but because there is nothing left to hold. Your jaw rests easily. Your tongue lies gently against the base of your mouth. Even your eyelids, whether open or closed, feel unburdened. There is something almost sacred about this stage of stillness, not in a ceremonial way, but in its simplicity. The night does not demand reverence. It does not require acknowledgement. It simply holds. You have been held like this before, perhaps in another open space, perhaps beneath another sky. That memory does not need to form clearly. It hovers faintly, then fades. The ground remains cool and neutral. The air remains steady. The horizon remains a quiet perimeter. Everything continues without direction, without agenda. Your awareness spreads gently outward as if your sense of self has widened beyond the outline of your body. You are still here, anchored by gravity, grounded by the earth, but the feeling of being a separate center has thinned. The plane carries its own rhythm. The sky carries its own depth, and you rest within both. A distant, solitary sound arises, perhaps a soft shift of grass or the faintest murmur carried across distance. It does not repeat, it does not demand interpretation, it passes. The quiet that follows feels fuller, not emptier. You notice how the darkness behind your eyelids mirrors the darkness above. There is no difference in texture, no difference in tone. The night exists both outside and within. The boundary between inner and outer grows faint. Your breathing continues to align with that subtle equilibrium. Inhale, exhale. There is no need to deepen it, it sustains itself. Your body feels heavier and lighter at the same time, heavier where it meets the ground, lighter where it meets the air. The weight distributes evenly. No single point draws attention. You are not sinking, you are not floating, you are resting. The sky remains constant, the stars remain steady, the grasses remain calm. You sense how little is required for this balance to hold. There are no moving parts to maintain, no adjustments to monitor. The night does not progress toward anything. It simply is. There is something deeply comforting in that. You do not need to follow the horizon. You do not need to measure the distance between stars. You do not need to understand the depth of the dark. It surrounds you evenly. Your hands remain open. Your chest rises and falls without instruction. The earth supports you without commentary, and the sky lowers just enough to feel intimate without ever pressing close. There is no next moment to anticipate, no transition waiting to unfold. The stillness has reached its steady state. Your awareness grows quieter still, not fading, not disappearing, just less active. Thoughts, if they appear, feel thin like faint ripples across a broad surface. They do not catch, they pass. The plane continues to stretch outward, wide and unbroken. You sense its continuity even without looking. It exists whether observed or not. The sky continues to arch above it, and you remain within that arch. You are not required to dissolve further. You are not required to hold anything in place. You are simply here, breathing, resting, held between earth and sky in a balance that asks nothing of you. The night does not announce its duration. It does not signal how long it will remain like this. It continues without markers. Your body, now fully at ease, responds in kind. Your breathing has become almost indistinguishable from the air itself. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm is subtle enough to blend with the quiet around you. And in that blending, the sense of effort dissolves completely. There is no separation left to manage, no boundary left to define. Just the steady, open presence of night and your quiet place within it. The stillness deepens, not by changing, but by becoming more familiar. You notice how easily your body trusts this place now. Earlier, there may have been a faint alertness, a subtle awareness of openness, of distance, of sky stretching far beyond sight. That alertness has softened. The openness no longer feels vast. It feels spacious in a way that supports rather than overwhelms. Your spine rests evenly against the ground. The small muscles along your back have released their quiet work. There is no need for them to brace. The earth does the holding. A slow breath moves through you. It enters without announcement. It leaves without resistance. The grasses around you continue their barely perceptible movement, bending and lifting in response to air that never pushes hard enough to disturb. Their rhythm feels almost internal now, as though the landscape is breathing alongside you. You become aware of how gentle gravity truly is. It is not a force that pulls harshly. It is a constant, steady invitation to rest. Your body answers it without thought. Somewhere in the distance, a faint shift in temperature brushes across the plain, the quiet cool that arrives when the night settles fully into itself. It touches your skin and passes on, neither lingering nor withdrawing. There is a quiet dignity to this hour. Nothing is performing, nothing is striving. The sky does not try to impress you with brilliance. The land does not attempt to hold your attention. Everything simply continues in its own measured way, and you continue with it. Your breathing slows another fraction. Your thoughts grow lighter, thinner, like mist that does not gather. The night holds its shape. The plain remains wide, and you rest easily within both, with nothing left to adjust, nothing left to consider, nothing left to carry. The sky has lowered fully now, not in weight, not in pressure, but in presence. It feels nearer, closer to the curve of your vision, closer to the quiet rhythm of your breathing. The darkness above is no longer something vast and distant. It has gathered itself gently, like a wide cloak settling into place. You remain where you are, there is no shift required. The ground beneath you has grown warmer in its own quiet way, holding the memory of the day's heat and releasing it slowly into the air. That warmth rises just enough to meet the cooling night, and between those two temperatures, the stored warmth and the descending cool, your body finds a steady balance. The horizon line has almost dissolved. The place where earth meets sky is no longer sharply defined. It has softened into a subtle blending of tones, charcoal folding into deep blue settling into something nearly without color at all. Your breathing continues. It is slower than before. You notice how easily it moves. Inhale, exhale. The air carries a faint trace of dry grass and stone that has been warmed and cooled in equal measure. It is not a strong scent. It simply exists. A small reminder that this land holds seasons, days, passing weather, and yet remains steady. A single sound moves across the distance. A bird, perhaps, adjusting its wings once before stilling, then quiet again. The quiet does not feel empty. It feels complete. There is something deeply reassuring about a sky that asks nothing of you. It does not require your gaze. It does not require your admiration. It does not change itself to meet your expectations. It simply remains expansive and calm. You feel how your body mirrors that steadiness. Your shoulders rest more fully. Your jaw has softened. The small muscles around your eyes have let go. You are not watching the sky now. You are within it. The sense of separation between your body and the air has thinned. The space around you feels less like something external and more like something shared. The coolness touches your skin and passes through your awareness without resistance. A faint ripple of wind moves across the open land. It does not rush. It glides. It gathers at the grasses and continues on, brushing over the uneven ground, rounding the smallest rises before easing into stillness again. You remain. There is no urgency in the night. Time has loosened its grip. Minutes do not feel measured here. They widen and settle uncounted. You may notice that your thoughts have slowed to match this place. They no longer line up in ordered rows. They drift more loosely, like light cloud traces that form and thin without needing to hold shape. The sky lowers another degree, not in movement, but in intimacy. It feels nearer. It feels protective. And there is something almost tender about that, the way darkness can cradle rather than conceal. You breathe in. The air enters cool. You breathe out. Your body settles deeper. The plain continues its wide, patient stillness. The grasses lean slightly, then right themselves. The earth holds its gentle warmth. There is no edge to this moment, no signal that something must change. The horizon has disappeared entirely now, folded into the larger shape of the night. What remains is a sense of continuity, above and below blending into one quiet field of presence. You do not need to orient yourself. You do not need to understand the scale of what surrounds you. You are already aligned with it. Your hands rest lightly against the ground. The soil beneath your fingers feels firm and unhurried. It has held weight before. It will hold weight again. It does not resist. A small memory passes through your awareness, not fully formed, not detailed, simply a sensation of having stood under a sky like this before. Perhaps on another evening, perhaps long ago. The feeling is familiar without being specific. You let it pass. The sky remains. The darkness deepens, not by thickening, but by settling more completely into itself. A faint mechanical hum might drift across the distance, perhaps from something far beyond the plane, then soften into the background, so gradually you almost wonder whether it was there at all. The air feels balanced. Your breathing is steady. You sense how easily your body trusts this place now. There is no tension left in the way you lie against the earth, no subtle readiness to move, no instinct to adjust. You are simply here. The sky does not press. The land does not shift. Everything has found its level. Another breath. Inhale, exhale. The movement of your chest is small now, barely lifting, barely lowering. The rhythm has smoothed into something even and unremarkable. Somewhere beyond sight, a hinge might sigh softly, a distant gate easing against its post, then return to stillness. The sound is gentle enough not to disturb, contained enough to feel safe. The night holds it, and then quiet again. You begin to notice how the stillness itself has texture. It is not blank. It carries subtle layers, air resting above ground, sky resting above air, your body resting within all of it. There is no need to separate these layers. They belong together. You belong within them. The sense of you has grown lighter. It has not disappeared. It has simply loosened its boundaries. The edges between your thoughts and the open sky feel less rigid. You are not dissolving, you are settling. The sky continues as it always has, wide, patient, without urgency. The plane continues steady, uncomplaining, grounded. Your breathing continues soft and unforced. There is nothing further to adjust, nothing further to consider. The horizon may return with morning, but that is not part of this moment. This moment is complete as it is, open and quiet and steady. A final trace of warmth leaves the soil beneath you, thinning into the cooling air. It does not vanish, it disperses gently. Your body responds by settling 1 degree deeper. Your spine rests, your shoulders rest, your thoughts thin further, like mist drifting low across open ground. The sky does not darken further now, it simply remains. There is something deeply calming about a presence that does not shift or demand or announce itself. The sky does not perform, it holds, and you are already within it. The sky continues as it always has. Its rhythm remains. You do not need to follow it. You are already within it. The night gathers, the quiet holds, and the rest will carry itself.